Hello and welcome to this live training. I'm looking at financial management for salaried people, and I've talked a little bit about this in some of my videos. But today I decided let me do a full training on it so that it can help a few people that follow. There are certain tips that I will give, and majority of the tips that I am giving are based on real life experience. As I keep saying, we are what we frequently do. So if we manage our finances better, then we ensure that we have a bit of savings and we don't do things just like that. They are organized, they are planned. Our finances are also planned as we plan our careers. So I'm looking at financial planning for salaried employees. That does not mean that if you are an entrepreneur, that this is not applicable. It is actually applicable for every other person that is uh, that is earning some money at the end of the month, or you earn at certain times, so you need to plan that amount. So without wasting much of your time, let's go straight to the training that I have prepared. And we will start with defining your financial goals. We are all different. So, how do we identify our financial objectives? It is from first ensuring we know where we are. I have talked about self awareness. Even in financial terms, you need to be aware, where am I at? So, you define your financial objectives and you split them into 3 time frames. There are long-term goals, you have medium-term goals, you have short-term goals. In the long-term goals, you could plan things you plan to achieve in a decade or more, including your retirement planning. I'm sure for a 20 plus or 30, you're wondering what I'm talking about when I talk about planning. But retirement planning is something you purpose to do immediately you start working. So when you are talking about long-term goals, include your retirement there, even if you have just recently started working. Then you have medium-term goals. Remember, these are finance goals. So these are goals that are within the next 5 years to 10 years, like starting a business or managing your budget more effectively. Those are midterm goals. Being more disciplined in terms of how you manage the money you are making. Then there are short-term goals. You're focusing on the targets, what you should achieve within the next 5 years, like paying off debts or even purchasing a car or several other things that you are interested in purchasing. So those are short-term goals. Then we look at categorizing your goals. Yes, you need to categorize those goals. So you divide the goals into 3 categories. There are certain things that are needs. Those are essentials, like housing, utilities. If you have children, you have school fees. Those are needs. You must cater for them on probably a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, based on how you pay your housing. There are certain places or countries or capitals that require you pay your housing quarterly. Your utilities, maybe when they fall due. And when I talk about utilities, you have electricity, you have water. Currently, a lot of us are having Wi-Fi in homes. So you might also classify that as a need, and it is in within the essential expenses. Then you have wants. You want to work or earn and not have some things like travel or entertainment. So you have a few friends that you meet probably on Friday, on weekends. Those are wants. So you must categorize your financial goals into these three categories. Then there are savings, investments for your future financial security. We will look at all those things as we go along with this training. But remember, you categorize your financial goals into these three categories. That is needs, wants, and savings. Then you establish a priority in order of your expenses and what is important to you. So what is a priority for you? So address the immediate needs first. Like a house, you can't fail to pay for housing and start paying for some other ones. So we must always be sure that our priorities are this. So when we get our salaries, we first address those needs. We pay off the housing, we pay off utilities, we pay off our loans or what we owe, and allocate other savings accordingly. Remember, savings is not what remains after you have spent. Savings is something you plan. So when you are paying for the other wants or for the other needs, savings is there. In fact, it should be considered before even the wants. When you're doing your self assessment, calculate your net worth. Yes, it's about figuring out how much are you worth. You need to consider your financial report. It's like a report card. So we must break that down into steps. So step one, take a good look at your salary or that income, what you bring in each month. Let's face the liabilities now. Once you look at the salary on this side, what are your liabilities? What are your financial responsibilities? Do you have a loan? Do you have a credit card? Do you have other people that you owe? So do your math when you are doing your calculation for your net worth. How much do you earn? What are your liabilities like? And we are looking at the needs, the things that we must pay on a monthly basis. Now let's do our maths. Subtract your liabilities from your assets. That's your net worth. The key number that shows your financial status. It's like a foundation of a house, strong and essential. So take your calculator and let's get this number crunching. Do your calculation so that you know how much you're worth. Don't we all want to know how much we are worth? We do, so that we can make our financial planning a little bit better. Coming from a point of view of we know where we are. Is it where we should be? Only you can answer that question. Then let's draw a budget. Out of the salary that you earn, we could have a 50-30-20 rule. And let me explain. When we talk about the 50-30% rule, you are talking about 50% going for essentials. I have talked about the needs. So allocate half of your income to fundamental expenses like rent, groceries, utilities. Those are necessities that maintain your daily life. And those are needs. I've talked about needs. So you have put 50% of your salary or of your pay or of your earning to those essentials. I find it a little uncomfortable when you have a salary, but it goes more than 50% goes to housing. You haven't factored in your groceries. You haven't put in utilities. You haven't put in fuel or bus fare to get you to your place of work. So when you do your math, 50% is for essentials. Let's go to 30%. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you dine out? Do you bring in lunch? Do you want to acquire a gadget here or there? I remember when I started working and I didn't know these kind of calculations. I would go out, find a nice gadget I want to buy. I didn't even plan for when to change my wardrobe. I would go, or some ladies will come, they are selling clothes, and I'll pick because I had no budget. I hadn't drawn a budget. I didn't know this 50, 30, 20 rule. But if I had known this 50, 30, 20 rule earlier, I am sure I would have done very well in terms of my saving. So you have 50% for essentials. Then you have 30% lifestyle choices. So if you need to go out, you will go out within this 30%. And let me advise you, if your 30% is depleted by the first week of the month, don't take other monies. Be disciplined such that you maintain that. You do not get bit of your 50% for essentials and allocate to these lifestyle choices. So we must be disciplined enough. Remember, I have always said we are what we frequently do. So make sure that when you set aside your budget, the 50% for essentials, 30% for lifestyle, you remain within that. Then 20%, you dedicate 20% towards enhancing your financial security. So this allocation supports building an emergency fund, planning for retirement, and addressing maybe you have some outstanding debt. So I'll talk about savings later within this training, but have your 20% for those financial goals. So it's for financial security. It will support your emergency fund. It will support your retirement. It will also address any outstanding debts that you may have. Then personalize your budget to reflect your aspirations. We are all different. For example, there are people, even when I've been working, or my friends or people I know, who would say their priority or their preference is to buy a flat. I am from a school of thought that I should buy land and build. So personalize your budget based on your aspirations and what you believe in. Whether it involves savings for a specific milestone or tackling existing financial obligations, your budget should align with your unique objectives. Remember, we are all different, we are unique, and we need to remain authentic, even as we draw our budget. Then let's adhere to a structured approach. It is discipline in managing our finances, our hard-earned cash. We spend a lot of time in the workplace. So it is very, very unfair for you or me to spend over 10 hours working. And then when it comes to managing our finances, we get more depressed than we were depressed when we worked. So adhere to a structured approach. Establish a defined budget that serves reliably. It serves you on this journey of finances, managing finances. So we have talked about 50% essentials, 30% for lifestyle choices, 20% for financial goals. Then managing your savings. I have talked about savings coming within the 20%. So effective managing of your savings is like steering your financial ship in the right direction. So as you set to sail on your career journey, consider setting aside initially maybe 10% of your earnings as a solid foundation in your savings account. Remember when you start working, here I'm talking to you've left college, you have gotten a job. Doesn't matter how much you have been paid. Maybe you got 30,000, others get 60, others 70. If you are lucky, you get 100. I'm talking about money in Kenya, but you could do a translation in your own currency. About when I talk about 10,000 here, is about it's less than $100, and a majority of people are not paid about that amount. They are paid a little higher, but regardless of how much you are getting, I'm talking about percentages. So when you start earning your first salary, put aside the 10% in savings. As your income grows, it's wise to bump up your savings to probably 15%, ensuring a stronger financial foothold. You see, we are what we frequently do. So if you started with 10%, you give yourself a target of increasing this to 15%. As your responsibilities accumulate, your age, you allocate probably 35% of your savings to meet your evolving financial commitments. Remember, if you hadn't saved, where do you get this 35% to allocate to evolving financial commitments? Like putting in a deposit for that nice apartment in this leafy suburb that you are interested in, or putting out a deposit for land, or for a house that you are putting up, or for a mortgage. Of course, every financial story is unique, and there might be exceptions to these percentages. But make sure you have a saving. You're better off with a little saving than none at all. What will you be discussing? Strategically aligning your savings with your needs is a crucial step, so that you maintain a certain control over your financial obligations. So we have talked about starting with 10%, increasing it to 15%, maybe to 20%, to even a higher percent as you accumulate more responsibilities, and also even your salary grows. In certain places, you get a bonus. So why don't you make a plan of putting aside of that bonus into your saving, so that you grow your saving a little sooner than later? Then crafting a retirement strategy. Start early. I know my young son or daughter will say, no, I'm only in my 20s, let me enjoy life. And they will include the saying YOLO, you will only live once. Yes, you only live once, but you are better off when you are disciplined in terms of savings. So start early. The earlier you begin saving for retirement, the more time your investments have to grow. Remember, as you age, there even reaches a point where a bank will not give you a loan. Like they won't give me a loan because of my retirement age. I'm almost there. They won't give me a loan. But when you are young, you can even get a mortgage of 25 years, because even the banks know you have just started your career and you will be able to repay. So even small contribution can make a significant impact over time. I do a very minor calculation when I talk about starting early. If you're doing 10% of 10,000 shillings monthly, and not majority of us didn't start with 10,000. If you do 10% of 10,000, I'm calculating in Kenya shillings, but you could do it in your currency. If you do 10% of 10,000, it's 1,000. So by 12 months, you have 12,000. If you do it for 5,000 for 5 years, it's quite an amount. But I'm looking at you getting 30,000 probably as a saving, as first salary in a very smaller institution. For bigger institution, you will get 60, 70, 80, even 100. So if you do even 10% of that 50,000, how much is that? It is 5,000. 5,000 over 12 months is 60K. 60,000, just calculate for 5 years. Do your maths, and you'll see that even small contribution can make a significant impact over time. Sorry about that noise. So set specific goals. Determine how much money you will need in retirement by considering factors like living expenses, healthcare, desired lifestyle. This will help you establish the target savings amount. I can tell you healthcare cost it's expensive. So when you are setting your targets in terms of retirement, put healthcare costs. Insurance once you're out here is very, very expensive. You see those little things that we see employers giving us, and we are not even appreciative. When you are out here without a job or a formal employment, that's when you appreciate that cover that your employer gave you. So when you are setting specific goals for your retirement strategy, put healthcare cost in to consideration. Then what will be your desired lifestyle? I know you don't want to change your lifestyle drastically, so save for it. This will help you establish the target saving amount. Once you know that once you retire or you stop working, you require this for upkeep, you require this for healthcare, and you require this probably for your car and the fuel, or you require this for certain other things, depending on your lifestyle. Remember, um, savings and financial planning is very personal because it depends on your kind of lifestyle. So, as you establish the target savings amount, it will be very, very personal, very intentional. Then maximize employer contribution on retirement pensions. I have seen situations where an employer matches your savings, and I see people refusing to do the maximum savings. That is not a clever way. If your employer is matching your contribution and they are willing to match up to 10%, why wouldn't you do the 10% yourself? You need to do that so that you maximize on the employer's contribution. Then contribute at least enough to receive the maximum employer match, as this is essentially free money. So I feel a little disappointed when I see the employer wants to match your contribution and their maximum is 7%, but you only want to do 3%. Why is that? We need to maximize on that, because with the time, you won't get this out here. Then diversify on your investments. Spread your retirement savings across different investment vehicles to minimize on the risk. You could consider maybe stocks, maybe bonds, mutual funds. These ones, talk to a financial advisor and they will advise you even other assets based on the risk tolerance and time horizon. So it is important that you consider a mix of these things. I have seen talking from personal experience, I have seen fixed fixing money with either insurances or banks work for me, but it's because I don't like taking risks. Remember, I have said financial planning is very personal. Yes, I'm afraid of risks, so I've found fixing deposit very good. I have also found uh, working on real estate also. I love that. I have loved doing that, working on real estate. Not that I haven't made mistakes. I have made a huge mistake once, but I won't talk about it here. But I made a huge financial mistake because of not listening. When you go to a bank to borrow and they say you have no ability to pay, don't force it, because they told me that I had no ability to pay, and I got stuck with a very huge loan which I was not able to pay. So at the end of the day, I had to dispose of that unit I had built, and the plan I had was a very good plan. In fact, it would have retained me during retirement, because the rent involved was a huge amount. So, as you consider your savings, make sure you get advice from financial advisors. By the way, these bank people that tell you, oh, you can't take this loan because of ABCD, they are very good. They can tell you if this whatever you are getting into is manageable with your kind of money. We have to be sincere with ourselves, even as we come up with a retirement strategy and other savings strategy. Regularly review and adjust. Monitor your retirement savings regularly. Make adjustments as needed. And as you approach your retirement age, gradually shift your investments towards less risky options to protect your savings. You don't want to lose your savings even as you near your retirement. Then have an emergency kitty. And when I talk about an emergency kitty, I feel very sad at times when there's an emergency. You have worked, you have been working, but you cannot manage. You have to run to borrow to manage whatever it is. I know people will talk about, oh, the economy is bad. The economy has always been bad. It hasn't been where we are now. But what we do is we manage within our means. We manage within the money, the kind of money that we have. So the emergency fund uh, I can is I can touch fund. It's not like a saving where you say it is I cannot touch fund. The emergency saving, this is for things might happen, but just not every month. So there are things that will happen not every month, but you don't want to be caught up in a situation that you've been asked for some money for a very important thing, but you do not have the money because you did not have the emergency kitty. So emergency fund savings refers to setting aside a certain amount to cover unexpected expenses or financial emergencies. This fund also acts as a safety net, and it will provide you with financial security during unforeseen circumstances, even as medical emergencies or job loss. Sometimes you're working and something happens and you lose the job. Or your car, if you have a car, requires major repairs. Or different things. So even you have a medical insurance, but you deplete the medical. You have no glasses like this. You go to an optician and you have to change your glasses. And you remember your money is properly planned. So you go to your emergency kitty and replace your glasses without having to go out there and borrow. So determine the target amount for your emergency kitty. Then calculate your monthly expenses and aim to save at least 3 months worth of living expenses, especially for that rainy day when you would lose a job. If you'd have 3 to 6 months, that would be very good, because within 6 months, especially for a younger person, you would have found another job. And this is where I tell you, work on yourself, work on your skills, so that when you are out here, you are very marketable. You can easily get a new job within the 6 months. So you have saved 6 months worth of living expenses. And that's an emergency kitty. You have set it aside in case. And you see, if you get into that habit, at the end of a few years, you might even have a near worth of living expenses on that emergency kitty. But this is based on individual circumstances and risk tolerance. Start saving early. In your 20s, begin setting money aside for those emergencies. Even small contribution can add up over a time. You know, you're putting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You have some bonus. You say, let me put a few thousand. Over a time, you find that your emergency fund kitty is very, very big. Automate your savings. It is always good when you automate. So when your pay hits the account, it's automated and the money automatically checks into that separate savings account that you have set for emergencies. The best thing for that account is to have an account which you don't have to withdraw all the time. You can only withdraw when you have that emergency. Then this helps to ensure consistent saving, because the money is coming and it directly goes to that emergency kitty without the temptation to spend. You know, when you feel you have a lot of money, we are human. We spend the money anywhere or elsewhere, or we feel we have money and we spend it anyhow. Ask me, I've been there, I've worked. And yeah, there are times you'd feel you have a lot of money, even you hadn't planned. You walk into a place and you are having a meal and you are having some impulse buying things that you do not need. They are wants. You even come with them home and later you find that you bought things that you do not need completely. You haven't used them. You haven't touched them. So have a plan. Automating this expenses also helps that not only the temptation to spend the money elsewhere, but also the temptation of having excess amounts, and you are thinking that it's money for any kind of usage. Then, since it's an emergency kitty, you'll keep it easily accessible. You'd be able to quickly access the funds when and if needed. Then separate from other savings. It is not your long-term savings amount. It's not your savings for retirement. Remember, it's an emergency fund kitty. So separate it from the other savings. Then replenish the fund. Remember, it's an emergency fund kitty. So you'll have had an emergency, you have spent it. So replenish it. Probably when you get a bonus or you get some money from somewhere, replenish, so that you make sure that your emergency kitty is up to a certain amount that you are comfortable with. So once you deplete it, make sure you add up. Then manage your debt. High interest debt like mortgage and credit cards should be paid as soon as they fall due to avoid any interest, further interest, or to avoid penalties. I have had a very high interest mortgage, and I can tell you that that it can send you to depression. Yes, you can become mentally sick because of high interest mortgages and debts. I have talked a little earlier about a property that I had to dispose. I took a loan with with a certain microfinance, and that was the worst mistake that I did. Their interests are higher than ordinary banks. So the mortgage drove me to, I almost got crazy. So high interest debt like mortgage and credit cards should be paid as soon as they fall due. When it comes to loans, a cautious approach is always key. Be cautious. If you have borrowed for education or other purposes, prioritize the repayment. Let me tell you, managing multiple loans simultaneously increases the risks of defaulting. So it doesn't matter how disciplined you are, avoid multiple loans. If you are able to, put them together and pay them as soon as they fall due. So don't make a habit of having multiple loans because it will increase that risk of defaulting. Maintain a disciplined financial plan by borrowing only what you can comfortably pay. When that bank advisor tells you you have no ability to pay, listen. I am telling you from experience, listen. Don't take any money when you do not have the ability to pay. Only borrow what you can comfortably pay. Financial experts actually advise that for salaried employees, the total burden should not exceed 50% of your income. Remember, we have talked about 50% going to your other needs, housing, utilities. So if you exceed 50%, to be repaying mortgages and loans, you see, you have spent your whole 100%. And that's when we fall into a lot of problems. So start early, being disciplined a little early, so that you always have your 50% for the needs. This other amount you can now spend with the loans and stuff. But make sure the financial burden does not go beyond 50%. Also consider gradually increasing your monthly payments as your income grows so that you can quickly pay your debt or clear your debt. So high interest debts like mortgage and credit cards, let them be paid as soon as they fall due. I will leave you with this. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. So financial planning, if we plan wisely, we will manage to have a huge savings by this planning. But let's plan. Remember, if you do not plan, you are planning to fail. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section and I'll make sure I respond to you. Any question that you have, please put them in the chat and I'll be able to respond to all of you. Thank you very much and see you in my next live stream. And I'll be having this maybe on a weekly basis. So be on the lookout for the announcement. Thank you very much.